Hey guys, welcome back to the Ramble. I'm your host Maria Legier. My toes are itchy and I'm working on a root canal, so we did something easy today. This is a few lines on dogs. Groucho Marx once said that outside of a dog, a book is a man's best friend. Inside of a dog, it's too dark to read. I believe this to be one of the truest statements ever uttered by a man, though I admit I had to get dogs myself before I properly understood it. At the moment, we have two dogs. The first one we got was a tiny chihuahua. Her name is Zappa, and she is not exactly race typical. She is also, quite literally, a bitch. At the moment, she is sleeping right beside me on the sofa as I type, resting and nesting as it were, partly atop, partly inside a woolen blanket which was meant to be used by the domesticated primates of the household. The bitch has, as one would expect, claimed dominion over the woolen blanket. In fact, she appears to have annexed it as part of her ever-expanding empire. To her, what's hers is hers, and what's ours is also hers. This is as it should be, I suppose. After all, Chihuahuas have got their reputation for a reason. Whatever it is, if it is in the immediate vicinity of a Chihuahua, it is theirs. Much like the seagulls in Finding Nemo, they will cry "Mine!" and reach for it with all their snoot and incredible sense of fun. What a bitch. This little bundle of snoot, paws and twitching tail have done more good for my emotional well-being and my mental health than any amount of babble-log psychotherapy, psychopharmaceutical drug cocktails and various and sundry. She is, and has been since we got her, a phenomenal help and comfort in the darkest moments and an amazing friend through and through. And I love her with all my beard. A year after we got her, we got our second dog, supposedly a Chihuahua, though I believe there is more than a smidgen of Tibetan Spaniel in his bloodline. His name is Fenris. He is a handsome son of a bitch, as well as being ridiculously clumsy, funny and good-natured. He wants nothing more from life than eternal belly rubs and ear strokings, preferably at the same time. I believe that both of our dogs, through a gentle application of belly rubs combined with the occasional treat, preferably duck, have obtained enlightenment and so live in a state of permanent nirvana. Until, that is, they spot someone outside with the audacity, the rudeness, the unfiltered egotism to walk on the pavement where either one of our dogs once took a shit, took a piss, or found something to eat which they should not eat, usually some manner of feces. Loss of nirvana is of no matter and little consequence, of course, as a state of nirvana is soon to be reached yet again. Just a small slip-up, a little stumble, and that is all there is to that. I love both of these tiny bastards with all my heart, beard and beginning male pattern baldness. Quite a few years ago, I knew a guy. We were never close friends, but we spoke ever so often. He was one of those tough guys. Not tough in any negative sense, mind you, though I suspect quite a lot of the feministas and various other prophets of the Church of Woke would refer to his mannerisms as toxic masculinity, trademarked. He was not violent or anything like that, just your regular no-nonsense guy. Hard-working, salt of the earth, not taking shit from anyone kind of guy. Straight-talking, honest and perhaps slightly too fond of the drink. I don't believe I ever saw him fazed by anything. He took everything in stride. Stood up for himself as well as his friends when needed, never shying away from a challenge. Typical manly man. A good, decent and honest man. As far as I knew him. He also had a dog. A gorgeous German Shepherd. I cannot remember the name of his dog for love nor money. This was years ago, and as much as I can remember the night in question in good detail, I cannot remember the name of his dog. I remember his name, but I will not mention that here for his sake. So I met him this one night, completely beside himself, drinking gin straight from the bottle in an obvious attempt to mask some severe emotional pain. Beyond comfort, seemingly caught in some terrible, frightful, dreadful despair which I could not understand nor comprehend. It was not easy getting anything out of him. Seems whatever pain he was drowning was devouring him, as though the reality of the situation had not yet reached him. After a while of talking with him, amidst the tears and dread despair, he managed to get it out. He had had to put his dog down. This was unexpected, to say the least. Yet, of course, it explained everything. Turned out that his dog had got a tumour on his brain. The dog was getting on in years, and that this tumour had gone unnoticed until it altered the behaviour and personality of the dog. He went from being a kind, friendly and obedient dog to being aggressive to the point of attacking his owner. And so he rushed his dog to the vet, took all the tests they were to take and learned that there was absolutely nothing they could do for him. It was either euthanasia or the rest of his short days in agonizing pain and with aggression and violence to boot. He opted for the humane option, as I believe most of us would. Not an easy choice by any stretch of the imagination. Yet it is the correct choice in my humble opinion. So there stood this tough guy, always unfazed, untouched by whatever insults or threats people could throw his way. A man who took everything in stride, no matter what challenges he met in life. Weeping, mourning, completely lost in grief, far beyond any comfort. And I'll tell you, seeing this man, this tough guy, so broken up, so absolutely devastated, it does something to you. By this I don't mean that I find it uncomfortable or pathetic seeing a grown man cry. Far from it, in fact. Yet seeing him so upset, so broken that night, it is such a profound thing to see and to experience that I struggle to put it into words. These were wounds that would never completely heal. I understood as much, even if it would be years and years until I got a dog myself. Men tend to be natural problem solvers. As far as I have understood it, this is part of the reason as to why men don't cry as readily, as much or as easily as women tend to when faced with some big problem, obstacle or whatever. Our first instinct is to solve it, and crying does not solve anything. And sure, crying may let out some of the pressure in the heat of the moment, but it will not solve anything and the pressure will build again. Better than to grit one's teeth and puff one's chest out, soldier on and figure out how to bloody solve the bloody thing. Crying may come later, when all else fails. As was the case with this man and his dog. There was no way to solve the problem without losing his dog. He solved the problem, but was faced with a problem which he could not solve. The loss of his lifelong friend. So came the grief, so came the despair, so came the sense of loss, and so came the tears. He did the right thing by his dog. I can only imagine how hard that choice was. No wonder he was inconsolable. And for my own sake, I very seldom cry from sadness, or when facing problems. It has happened, but it is incredibly rare. I do, however, cry fairly regularly. From joy. I get moved to tears extraordinarily easily. Just looking at my dog sleeping or playing will often do the trick. There is no problem to solve there, so it is much easier to get lost in the moment and become absolutely overwhelmed with joy and love. This is not something I am ashamed of. Quite the opposite. See, I don't get this obsession our cultures have that men have to learn how to cry and other such piss pottery. Men are very adept at dealing with stuff. We just tend to deal in a way that differs from how women tend to deal. And there's nothing wrong with this. Men are not defective women. I propose a worldwide campaign. Something along the lines of, women need to learn how not to cry. See how far we'll get with that before being accused of various soggy knees, before we get accused of viewing women as defective men. Instead of society accepting that we are different and so deal and cope differently, men must be re-educated, remodeled, re-engineered so that we deal and cope in the way women deal and cope. For the feminine is the standard and the masculine a deviation, for some strange reason. A dog becomes a natural part of the family, way beyond being only a pet. There is a bond between a man and a dog that is just as strong as, if not stronger than, any bond between a man and any other human being. Outside of my dogs, and of course my wife, a book has always been my best friend. I have, as of yet, not attempted to read a book inside my dog, and I would much prefer not to. But I have been reading ferociously since I was a small kid. Books that were too advanced for my age group at the time, apparently, though I believe that to be baloney and bullshit. Who decides what is proper reading material for any age group? Excepting the obvious, pornography for example. So I finally understood what Groucho Marx meant, and I wholeheartedly agree. At times, I believe that dogs are too good for humanity, that we don't deserve them. They are the most beautiful creatures there are. I often prefer their company to other human beings, that's for damned sure. And throughout my life I have heard the statement, quote, men are dogs, expressed by scores of women as some strange form of insult, and it always makes me giggle and snort. Apparently, it is meant as a statement of disgust, pointing to the animalistic nature of men or something to that effect. It is meant to be an insult, which is about as ridiculous and absurd as any other thing conjured forth from the darkest recesses of a feminine shadow could ever be. For what are dogs known for? Loyalty. Loyalty and love. And cuddles. Unquestioned loyalty and love without hesitation. Wanting nothing in return but your friendship, putting aside the obvious, which is food, shelter and water. So whenever I encounter that statement, I cannot help but take it as the highest compliment, for it could not possibly be anything but that, excepting to people suffering from chronic cat hoarding and boxed wine addiction, I suppose. If men are, in fact, dogs, then it stands to reason that men are good, noble, loyal, pure, true and very fond of food. It stands to reason, then, that men will put themselves in harm's way to save someone else, that men protect, defend, and cuddle, that men overflow with kindness, love and good, playful humour. And honestly, I agree. To quote Tom Golden, men are good. I cannot imagine any higher compliment than being compared to a dog. Dogs are good, and so are men. Thank you very much for watching. Here follows an outro most befitting a video of this nature, a blatant attempt at virtual panhandling. Should you wish to support this channel, as well as my blog and any further endeavours this strange path will take me on, there are a few ways you can do that. The easiest would be to like, share and subscribe, as well as clicking the sometimes functional notification bell. Having the message, such as it is, manspread and mansplained far and wide will do wonders. You could also support my rambling and barely contained insanity by buying my books, which are linked below. More books will be made available as time allows. I also have a Redbubble shop, linked below, where you can buy prints in various forms of some of the artwork presented in my videos. Or you can contact me through the contact form on my blog for original artwork, commissions or prints direct from the source, so to speak. Until next time, I am your humble bearded bard, Morea Legier, manspreading majestically beneath the steel sky of doom.